Good afternoon, my name is Edward. Today I'm going to do a screencast on how to edit pictures using Lightroom 5. Let's begin. First thing we'll want to do is open up Lightroom 5 by double-clicking. Once in Lightroom 5, we'll want to import the pictures that we'll want to edit. In order to do this, move down over here to the Import and left-click. Now you need to select the location of where your pictures are. For me, my pictures are located in this folder named Panasonic GX1. Once you click on the folders, all of your pictures will appear over here. And if you notice, all the pictures have a tick mark next to them. This indicates that they are highlighted and will be imported once you actually decide to hit the import button. If for whatever reason there are pictures you don't want to import, you can go ahead and left click them, and they will become unhighlighted, and these pictures won't be imported. You can also come down here to uncheck all, and in which case all of the pictures will be unhighlighted, and only the specific ones you choose to select will be ready to be imported. In this case, that's what I'm going to do. I'm only going to import this one picture here. If you wanted to do all of them again, you can come back here and click check all, and all the pictures will be re-highlighted and they can all be imported. But again, I'm only going to do one image, and that's this one right here. When you're ready, click import. Now our picture is imported and it's ready to be developed. In order to do that, we'll go over here to the Develop module. This is the module we'll use in Photoshop to do all of our editing. First place we'll start at is up here. This is called the histogram. The histogram is a display of the tonal range of light in your picture. Over here we have the darkest darks, and over on the right we have the brightest bright pixels. And one of the things we can do with this histogram is we can select it with our left mouse button and drag to the left and drag to the right. And if you notice, when we do that, it actually changes the way the picture looks. When we drag far left to the dark side of the histogram, our image becomes darker. If you click and drag to the right, our image becomes brighter. Ideally, what you want for a nice image is you want everything to be, you want your tonal range to go all the way from the dark all the way up to the light. Now down here we have slider bars that also have the same information as up here in the histogram. We have the total exposure, which is here in the middle. We have our shadows, or our blacks, located down here, which only affects the darkest of the pixels. Your whites, which only affects your whitest pixels. Your shadows and your highlights. One of the nice things about Lightroom is anytime you make an adjustment, you can quickly go back by double-clicking. So anytime you double-click one of these sliders, it will go back to its original setting, and you know exactly where you started from. So now let's actually take a look at developing this picture here. One of the first things I see is it's a little bit dark. It's not extremely dark, but in this area here, it's a little bit dark. So one of the things we can do to edit this picture is we can bring these shadows up a little bit. So in order to do that, you can left click in one of these two sections here, this one named blacks. This is your darkest darks, and you can slide that up a little bit to the right. And if you notice, it increases the brightness of the picture just a little bit in this region. But it does not affect the brightness or the tonal range in the highlights. This is very important. Now if we switch over here to the shadows, we can bring the shadows up a little bit. And if you notice, now we're really starting to bring out the light here in the shade region. And again, when we move with the shadows, it does not affect the highlights up here in the sky or over here or anywhere in your picture. Same being, if you select your highlights and you change your highlights, it does not affect the darks. This is one of the really nice things of Lightroom. And again, in order to go back to reset your whites, just double click the slider bar and they're reset. And again, for the highlights, just double click and reset. Alright, so now I want to move my blacks down just a little bit. I want to move my shadows down just a little bit. And I think that's about good. I'd like to see some light in here, but I also don't want it to look like it's not in the shade. And as far as the sky is pretty good. We can edit the total exposure if we want from this middle slider called the exposure, but I think actually it is pretty good right about here. So if you'd like, you can stop at this point and call this picture good. But one of the other things you can do is you can play with the clarity, the vibrance, and the saturation. The clarity affects the contrast of the picture, and if you increase it, it will increase the amount of contrast. If you notice, he goes all the way to the left, it makes it soft, and if you move it to the right, it becomes a little bit sharper. I generally do about 15, plus 15 to plus 20 on clarity. Plus 17 I think is just fine. Another thing you can do is if you don't want to use these sliders, you can just left click on the number and type in and hit enter, and the number that you want to do will go directly in. For vibrance and saturation, vibrance affects how vibrant your colors will be. For this, I generally like to do plus about 20. And for saturation, it is similar to vibrance, and it'll make your colors pop a little bit. I prefer to add a little bit of saturation, but not so much to make it look completely artificial. For saturation, I generally do about plus 15. Alright, so now, how does this compare to before? Well, if we want, we can just go to double click. And we can get an idea of how this looks before the changes were made. It's alright like this, but I think it looks a little bit boring. And I will add in again about 20 to the clarity, about 20 to the vibrance, and about 15 to the saturation. Now another thing we can do is we can go down here to detail and we can add in some sharpening of our own. This will make the image again slightly sharper, a little bit more detail in the rocks, in this stonework over here. We can also add in some noise reduction. And oftentimes with most cameras nowadays there will be a little bit of noise in the picture. And depending on the ISO you use, it will be greater. Higher ISO numbers will give you a larger amount of noise. So by going up here to luminance, noise reduction, I like to use about 50. That generally will reduce most of the noise you have in your pictures. And for most pictures, these simple areas within the develop module are all you really need to make any average picture look much better. So again, this is over here in the basic module, as well as down here in the detail module to do your sharpening and your noise reduction. And with these two simple little tools within the develop module, you can make most of your pictures appear much, much nicer. That's it for right now. Thank you very much and have a good day.